So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional land on which my research team operates in Toronto, Ontario. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. This land is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are incredibly grateful, and myself personally incredibly humbled for this opportunity that we have to work on this land. I have no conflicts of interest to declare related to this presentation. So today we are going to discuss some of the things that we've learned over the last decade or so on how to synthesize evidence quickly to meet decision maker needs, as well as how the COVID end response will work. And then I will hand it off to our brilliant patient partners, Maureen Smith and Francois Pierre, who are going to talk a little bit about engaging patients and citizens as partners in research and particularly in rapid reviews. So when time is limited, especially with COVID-19, we are trying to conduct rapid reviews within 5 to 10 days. So we don't have a lot of time to do this. So we need to streamline or judiciously omit steps of the traditional knowledge synthesis approach. And can I just ask everyone to please make sure that you're on mute? I'm hearing a little bit of background, especially for the recording. So. Thank you. And Wasifa is helping me actually moderate this. So Wasifa, if you see people are on, if they're not muted, if you can kindly send them a note and just a private note just to ask them to put themselves on mute. Thank you. So we're streamlining or judiciously omitting steps of the traditional knowledge synthesis approach, and usually we're thinking of a systematic review here. And we're trying to synthesize evidence for decision makers in a very resource efficient manner. And often when we're working with decision makers, it's making sure that we submit our results to them on time. So we want to make sure that we're reaching that window of opportunity for their decision making needs. So there are different types of evidence products available, and I want to note that this was put forth by a close colleague of mine, Dr. Lisa Hartling. I'm not sure if Lisa's on the phone, but she talks about this in some work that she did for AHRQ many years ago. So we can think about inventories. So this is just a list of available evidence on a topic. There's also the rapid response brief, where you're trying to summarize the best available in a synthesized and contextualized manner, and you're often focusing on pre-existing reviews for that. And then here today we're talking about rapid reviews. And when we're thinking about the COVID end perspective, the most useful type of rapid review to our decision makers are most likely scoping reviews, overviews of reviews, and then the rapid systematic review or rapid review. So now I'd like to focus on the flow of steps that we would follow for a rapid review. So this will be an overview and probably a repeat of the expertise of many people here, but just to think about some of the ways that we can streamline this for our decision makers. So we would start off with our protocol, and so you want to make sure that you establish your question. You know, often the PCOST criteria is very helpful. You're going to be planning your literature search, and even though this is a rapid review, we do want people to develop a work plan and budget. So in your package today, you received, I think, 7 documents. So in there, you will see a document called the work plan, and many of the things that I'm covering today are actually outlined in that work plan. So we're hoping that that's a useful resource for everyone. Sometimes you may wish to register your protocol. With these 5 to 10 day timelines, we probably won't, and you don't have time to publish your protocol for the most part when you're doing a rapid review. For the literature search, you will think about limiting, so making some limitations on the databases that you're searching. And again, in that work plan document, we've given some tips on which databases we feel would be important for you to search. Sometimes we use a layer search approach. So sometimes we've worked with decision makers where, oh, sorry, and I think I'm still hearing some people and I'm hearing a bit of background. Let me just see. Sorry, everyone. Okay. Yes, so we've worked with decision makers where we've done a layered search approach. So we've synthesized the clinical practice guidelines, and then, there wasn't a lot of evidence there. So then we moved on to the randomized trials. Again, not a lot of evidence there. Then we moved on to observational studies, not a lot of evidence there. And then moved on to, more media releases and non-traditional sources of evidence. So basically, just to mention that this could be a way of streamlining things with our decision makers. Again, thinking about what their needs are, where you start off with some types of evidence and then move on to other types. That could be helpful. When we're doing our level 1 and level 2 screening, we always want to start with a pilot test, and oftentimes we'll have one person doing the screening. So that's a little shortcut that we think of. And then when we're doing our data abstraction, again, we always want to pilot the form, and we may have one person doing the data abstraction and another person verifying the data. And sometimes we get a second person verify the most important data. So if there's any outcome measures that you want to make sure that you got that data really correct, then maybe you would have one person abstract and another person verify. For the critical appraisal, so this again, we may streamline it by having one reviewer and one verifier. And another tip would be if you're doing a scoping review, perhaps you would skip this step, but again, it's really up to the decision maker and what their needs are. So sometimes, the decision maker may say, okay, you could do the scoping review, but we want you to appraise the randomized trials, or we want you to appraise the cohort studies as an example. So we can use this kind of hybrid approach where, because often in a scoping review, we wouldn't appraise risk of bias. However, again, if this is what your decision maker wants, then we're gonna help them with that. We often limit the number of tables in text when we're summarizing the study and patient characteristics. And often it's just limited to a basic descriptive summary of the studies. If you are planning to do an analysis and it's appropriate, then you may prioritize. So you may pick a meta-analysis on one or two outcomes as an example. When we look at the literature consistently, there's not a lot of meta-analyses that are conducted with the rapid reviews. Like, it's often a quick snapshot of the literature for our decision makers. We may wish to provide a more streamlined product. Again, we want this to be fit for purpose, and we want to make sure that we're presenting relevant contextualized results to our decision makers. So we find that one-page summaries are very helpful. And when you're writing up your results, you want to discuss the policy, the practice, and the clinical implications with great caution. So you want to be mindful and thoughtful of the streamlined steps that you've taken, the omissions that you've made. And you want to make sure that you are presenting this to your decision maker in a way that they would know what some of those implications might be. So this is a practical guide. We wrote this in collaboration with the World Health Organization, and many people who are part of COVID End were authors in here. So, such as Shannon Kelly and Mike Wilson and Chantal Garrity, et cetera, Adrian Stevens. So a lot of close colleagues worked on this together. It was a lot of fun. And basically what we recommended here is how can we try to tailor our methods? So how do we tailor our rapid review methods to meet the needs of our decision makers? So we're always thinking about this when we're working with our decision makers. How can we streamline the steps in a very thoughtful way? We're not just doing a blanket statement here and saying, we always do these limiting steps. We want to tailor it to our decision makers' needs so that we provide them with something that's very relevant and useful to them, and was done very thoughtfully, methodologically. So we do have some resources here. So we have links to the learning modules as well as to the guide. And just to note that we are making these slides available to everyone later on, so you'll have access to this. And I believe we do have a document in the package where we have a whole list of resources for rapid reviews that we'd love people to consult that as well. We also wrote a paper, so we were looking at the challenges during COVID-19. So again, we were focusing on the knowledge synthesis process and trying to do rapid reviews, and we we're trying to provide some helpful guidance. So again, you'll see many COVID-N collaborators here. So just to give a shout out to Chantal Garrity and Leah Bolis and Mike Wilson. And we also have Brian Hyndman, Fiona Clement, Nicole Mittman. We also have Ahmed Abu Seda, and we also had Shannon Kelly and Vivian Welch, Annie LeBlanc, George Wells, and also Sharon Strauss. So quite a few members of COVID-N in Canada here. So it was just such a pleasure working with all of you on this, and definitely made the paper quite interesting. And for people who haven't read it, would love to hear your thoughts on it. And we're hoping that it's a helpful resource for people trying to do rapid reviews. So I won't go into details of that commentary, but just to note that we did publish that earlier in 2020, and we were trying to think of some ways to get through rapid reviews and making sure they're relevant for decision making. Also wanted to highlight, so COVID-N is collaborating with Cochrane Canada, which is amazing, and several colleagues who are working with the Cochrane Rapid Reviews group, such as Chantal Garrity and Adrian Stevens, and just so lovely working with everyone. And they've put forth a lot of really great resources on rapid reviews. So again, if you haven't seen these, I would highly recommend you to reach out and check these out. Also just wanted to quickly mention the intersectionality exercise. So you will see this in your package. So as you know, our Canadian Institutes of Health Research has a real focus on sex and gender-based analysis. And so as part of this and as part of the COVID-N CIHR grant, we do have a focus on gender equity. So we have included a reflective intersectionality exercise, and this is for you to do on your own time, and it's for anyone who is involved with the rapid review. So it's for you and your team. And it's a self-reflective exercise. You do it individually. And it's just a way for us to be aware of the potential biases that we have, and in particular, how it may impact our interpretation of results. So if you're wondering why that was in there, that is in there because the focus of sex and gender-based analysis as per CIHR. And this is a nice unconscious bias awareness raising type of exercise. So we're not saying it's going to solve everything, but it is just showing us and making us aware of our own unconscious biases that we all carry, making us a little bit aware of that. So wanted to mention that that is another document that's part of the package, and we would like people to do this before you start your rapid review. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how can we tailor our rapid review methods to what our decision makers' needs are. So this is a case example, and actually this is perfect timing because we finished this rapid review a year ago. I believe February 26th. I remember it was a stressful time because COVID was just coming out, and we were actually commissioned by the Public Health Agency of Canada. And this is through the Drug Safety and Effectiveness Network that some members of COVID-N are members of or a part of as well. So they were looking for information on the safety and efficacy of drug treatment for COVID-19. And so they basically wanted us to look back and see, and again, it was quite new, so there wasn't a lot of literature out there at this very moment. And this is something that they wanted us to do within a 10 business day timeline. So it'd be very similar to the kind of work that we're doing with COVID-N. And if you look in your package, you'll get the work plan document. And in there, you'll see when you're setting up your team, consider including a content expert. And if you can, at the very minimum, find individuals who have expertise in infectious disease. Working clinicians with COVID who are working with patients with COVID is great. However, we know their time is very limited. So if you could find a content expert, and we're happy to put you in touch with people if you don't have those connections. And we're also recommending 2 patient or citizen partners. And again, we'll be chatting about that a little bit afterwards. And also if you can include a research trainee. So the reason that we're suggesting this is for the content expertise, it will be invaluable to the questions that you're answering, especially if it has a clinical focus. The patient partners and citizen partners is because we are committed to patient engagement with COVID-End, as well as through the SPORE Evidence Alliance. And we're also committed to capacity building, and that's why, you know, there's no better way of learning than doing, so we recommend that you include a research trainee. So just to kind of go through some of the how did we tailor the methods? So a useful tool that we've put forth is the What Review is Right for You tool. So to determine whether it should be a scoping review or should it, a rapid scoping review, rapid overview, rapid review could be helpful. And then when the other thing that we recommend is registering your question and actually going through all the material for the National Collaborating Center for Methods and Tools. So this is the one hosted by McMaster that Maureen Dobbins is running. So we always look through there, make sure that it hasn't been done before. And again, you know, using the COVID-End resource as well is really fantastic, and making sure that this is unique review. So when you're scoping it and developing it, you know, is there a pre-existing review? How is your review different? We don't want to duplicate work here. Looking through the National Collaborating Center for Methods and Tools. And if your research question is not registered there, then we would recommend that you register it there. And again, with these 5 to 10 day timelines, we're not expecting you to register your protocol, but we are expecting you to register your research question. And with the case example that I mentioned for the Public Health Agency of Canada, so how did we tailor this? Well, we negotiated with them and we negotiated the 10 business day timeline for us to get that conducted for them. And so we would recommend working with an experienced librarian. We have a lot of library support, and we have the great pleasure of working with several librarians, such as Jessie McGowan and Leah Boulis. So if you don't have a librarian, let us know, and we're happy to put you in touch with a librarian. There's also some thinking through about how will you limit your literature search. So we actually heard some great feedback from Maureen Dobbins, who's been doing a ton of rapid reviews with decision makers such as Public Health Agency of Canada. And she was saying that they're actually moving beyond limiting it for the last year when it comes to COVID, but the last couple of months, because the literature has changed and is evolving so quickly. So depending on your topic, again, we have to tailor it to the topic and our decision-making needs. So can we limit it to the last couple months as an example? And when it comes to languages, we are recommending all languages because it is a pandemic impacting all areas of the world and many different languages. And we do present some ideas on limiting number of databases. So we're saying at least Medline, PubMed, or Embase, also Cochrane if you can. Thinking through about the studies that you're including, and also searching the gray literature. So you want to look at the McMaster Health Forum, the COVID-End resource, also preprint servers, and also trial registries, etc. So again, in your work plan document, you'll see some tips there. And getting back to the case example, so how did we tailor it? For that first 10 days, at the very start, we limited to language. So we did limit it to English. We're not recommending you to do that now because there's just so many things that are available in other languages. And then we had updated our literature search using automation. So that's kind of how we streamlined it. So the first go at it was limited to English, and then the updates were including all languages. So when you're doing your study selection, we recommend standardized screening forms and a calibration exercise with the lead scientist and your content expert and your patient partners if you can, of course. We know that it's a 5 to 10 day timeline, so that might not be feasible. So at the very minimum with your lead scientist, because there might be some methodological nuances that you want to be aware of. So making sure that this is being pilot tested, and then you're going to decide, you know, depending on the scope of the results, can you do 2 reviewers independently as per the Cochrane handbook, or will you use 1 reviewer and 1 verifier, or do you have very experienced team members and you'll have 1 person screening the literature? And other things that you can think of are semi-automation, machine learning, and crowdsourcing. And so again, for our case example, we had a single reviewer, and then again, as I mentioned, for level 1 screening, we used semi-automation. So when you're doing your data extraction, so we recommend a standardized form, and again, pilot testing it with the lead scientist. This is a great point in time where you can ask your patient or citizen partners what are outcomes that are most important to them, including them on this. And actually, I should have mentioned that you can also include them at the protocol or the work plan stage, so getting their feedback, their quick feedback on that work plan stage as well. And so thinking through here, asking your content experts what outcomes are really important, asking your patient or citizen partners which outcomes are really important, and then piloting the form. And so again, you may have to make decisions. Do you have, and maybe you have just a few studies and you have the capacity to have 2 people do this independently. If you can go for it, do it. However, you might not be able to within the 5 or 10 day timeline. So perhaps you have one person abstract the data and another one may verify the key data, so such as the primary outcomes as an example, or maybe you have the luxury of one person extracts everything and one person verifies everything, or maybe, if it's such a time crunch and you have lots of studies included, only one person. So again, other approaches are semi-automation or machine learning or crowdsourcing for data abstraction. And sometimes we have synchronous data extraction across teams. So what we mean by that is that while you are doing reference scanning, et cetera, or maybe it took a little while for articles to come in at level 2 screening, you'll have some team members designated doing that, and then we'll have some team members who will be doing data abstraction at the same time, so simultaneously. So sometimes we're doing different steps all at the same time because it's such a rapid time frame. And for the case example, so to bring it back again, that would be having, we only had single reviewers doing this. So for the risk of bias appraisal, so again, as I mentioned, if it's a rapid scoping review, we don't often do risk of bias or quality appraisal for scoping reviews, but I think sometimes the decision maker may request it. So for example, they may say, do the scoping review on all the evidence, but we want you to appraise the risk of bias on the randomized trials and the observational studies as an example. And always use a validated risk of bias tool, and as well as a pilot test with the reviewers and the lead scientist. Again, if you're not experienced with it, some people are super experienced with these tools. They've been using them for years, so you may be able to skip the pilot test step. And again, you may decide that, okay, we're only gonna, look at these key documents for the source of bias, or perhaps we're only gonna look at, these 2 elements for source of bias because they're the biggest threat to internal validity as an example. So you might not use the tool you might just use components of the tool, not the entire tool. Again, this all has to be tailored methodologically to what your decision makers need and to your timelines. So you have to decide, will it be one reviewer alone, or will it be one reviewer and one verifier for the risk of bias? And you can always consider the other approaches such as semi-automation, etc. And so to bring it back to that case example that we completed a year ago now, we had single reviewers perform the risk of bias assessments. So when we're thinking about summarizing our report and writing the report for our decision maker, we often keep the analysis very high level. Sometimes we send preliminary results, so just very high level results, and then we have a phone call with them and we say, okay, like what is really important to you for your decision, and can we do a deep dive or dig deeper into the issues to help with their decision making. And some teams use summary of findings tables, which could be quite helpful. And I know several teams here have a lot of experience doing that. And again, I'm not sure if it's able to do that within the 5 or 10 days, but something definitely open for discussion. And then you want to be specific and transparent about the limitations. So exactly what I said previously. And also if you can comment on whether a more comprehensive systematic review should be completed and when a review should be done. And you want to work closely with your decision maker to interpret the results, and you want to make sure the end product is relevant and fit for purpose. So with the case example, we had descriptive synthesis, we had a call with Public Health Agency of Canada. We asked them, which results were very interesting for them, what could we help further with, could we produce subsequent reports to help them with that, and how can we interpret the results to make sure that it's very useful for them. So when you're reporting your findings, so right now there currently isn't a checklist or a Prisma extension for rapid reviews, even though I know Adrian Stevens and Chantal Garrity have done some preliminary work on that. So in the meantime, we recommend the Prisma checklist, and we do have a report template that came in your package today. So definitely check that out, and we have some helpful prompts in there based on the Prisma checklist for you. So we suggest a streamlined product. So we love one-page summaries. So for every project that we do, we always produce a one-page summary. And we're very lucky with COVID End in that we will be co-producing one-page summaries with our patient and citizen partners, which is amazing. So that is something that we will be doing, and the research teams will be working with them on that. And then all of those one-pagers will be posted on the COVID End website, which I think is really fantastic and really important. To make sure that our results are disseminated further. And we're also recommending the use of alternate mediums. So whether it's through the media, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. So again, you know, if we can tweet out these one-page summaries would be fantastic, and just spreading the word of the fantastic work that all the research teams here are doing related to the COVID queries that will be coming in. So you may be asked to update your review, and some of you I know are already doing living reviews through COVID End. So we have 2 living reviews currently that are being done. So when we're thinking about doing these living reviews, can we use automation and searching and screening? And again, you know, in the intake call, we have to ask our decision makers, how often do they need us to update this? What makes the most sense in terms of deliverables? And not so much an issue here is the funding availability, but that would be something if you are planning to do a rapid review contract. So here are the work plan and budget templates. So again, we're hoping they're helpful to everyone. There's a lot of tips and prompts to help you think through your research plan. And we are asking you to submit them prior to undertaking your rapid review. So we've sent everyone all the documents. If you have any questions on the documents or suggestions, we're always open to suggestions. So please feel free to send those in, and we're happy to take everything into consideration. Also wanted to mention a couple of the Cochrane Learning live webinars. So these can also be helpful, especially for teams who haven't done a lot of rapid reviews. So would encourage you to check that out. And then just quickly, before I hand it off, I wanted to touch base about how the COVID End response will work, because I know a lot of people have questions about this. So basically, decision makers will send in their rapid review request to COVID End. And Mike Wilson is taking a leadership role with developing the questions, which is fantastic. And you'll be getting those emails from Mike, and I know many of you have already received those emails. And then they'll be asking to see if anything has ever been done on the topic or who's working on the area. If there's a team already working on the area, I mean, even to bring it back further, if it's already being done, we don't want to do it. We don't want to duplicate it. If there is a team who has expertise and is doing something similar on a related topic, but not the exact topic, perhaps they would be the team that would be best suited to do the rapid review. And then we would also find out at that point of time which team has the capacity. So then Mike Wilson and Safa will be sending that information to myself and myself and the central team for the Spore Evidence Alliance. And we're going to look through and see, you know, I have an ongoing log of who's doing what. I'm making sure that we have a lot of balance because it is a pan-Canadian initiative. We want to make sure that people from all areas of Canada are given a turn, and we want to make sure that we're spreading the work and spreading the funding as much as possible. So basically what we'll do is we'll be looking at how do we geographically spread this, how do we make sure people with different levels of expertise and skills and making sure that there's some diversity in the teams that will be responding to the rapid reviews. So actually responding to the decision makers and conducting the rapid reviews. Then what we will do is we will have an intake call. I will try to be on those as much as possible, and Mike Wilson and I are hopefully meeting later this week to chat about some standard questions that we'll be asking, just based on our previous experience. So asking them various things with the decision maker, and the research team will be doing the rapid review. So we'll set up a call. And then we'll be asking at that point in time, as an example, shall we engage a patient partner or a citizen partner, and shall we engage a trainee, and do we have content expertise on the project? And then we are asking you to submit the final report within 10 business days. And again, this can be a very high level report. And then if the decision maker has feedback and wants us to do a deeper dive, then we may have to do that above and beyond those 10 days. So that's a little bit of a bit of an outline of how it will work. And again, happy to take questions at the end of the session to make sure that all of your questions and concerns are addressed. So just to summarize, so before you start your rapid review, we are asking you to complete the reflective intersectionality exercise. We are asking you to complete the conflict of interest declaration. Within 48 hours of the phone call, submit the work plan and budget, and that will be reviewed ASAP. I'm reviewing all of them just for high level comments. And again, I am here to support you in any way, and it is my absolute pleasure to do so. So anything I could do to help, I'm a quick email away and happy to help out. So I'll be reviewing all of that as quick as possible. We're asking that you provide a quick check-in or update to your knowledge user or decision maker weekly at a minimum. Like, you're probably going to be doing some questions back and forth. So as much as you can work together, the closer you can work together, the better. And then submitting the report again within 10 business days. So now it is my absolute honor and privilege to hand this over to Maureen, as well as Francois Pierre. I'm not sure, Maureen and Francois Pierre, if you would like me to, if you want to instruct me to change the slides, or if you wanted to become the presenter, but I'm happy to do whatever would make sense for you.
That would be great, Andrea, if you could just say next slide.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll do that for you. So I'm going to put myself on mute, and I'm going to hand it off to our very capable patient partners here.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'll introduce myself, and then Francois Pierre will introduce himself. So my name is Maureen Smith, and I've been co-leading the COVID-End Citizen Partnership Strategy. And now that we have the COVID-End Canada, pivoted over to that also. And I'm from Ottawa. I'm a patient with a rare chronic disorder since the age of 8. So very excited to be doing this work and to be working with the team. And hopefully we'll give you a very brief presentation on how to engage patients and citizens as partners in research. François Pierre?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. FP Gauvin. I'll be co-leading the Citizen Partnership Strategy with Maureen, and I've been for several years a senior scientific lead at the Master Health Forum, especially around citizen engagement activities. And I think it's a nice opportunity to get you excited about patient-citizen partnership. And I know it's a bit challenging doing that in the context of a rapid review, but I think there's some very promising practices, and there's a lot of potential benefits of doing so. And so it will be great to talk about that. So Maureen?
Yeah, next slide. Thank you. All right, so we have the definition of patient. Of course, you all know what that is. So that includes caregivers and their family and friends. And we have what is meant by patient engagement in health research, which is active collaboration in governance, priority setting, conducting research, knowledge translation, etc. Next slide. And we've added citizens, because many of the COVID-19 research topics are relevant to citizens. So for example, all the public health measures, the vaccines, the societal and economic impacts, etc. Thus, engaging them is essential. So when we're talking about patient engagement in terms of COVID-End, we're really talking about patient and citizen engagement, which will help shape the research in the health system to be more responsive to their needs and focuses on the patient priorities and improves patient outcomes individually and in their communities. Next slide. All right, so here we go. We've got the spectrum of how to engage your patient and citizen partners. And you're going to have to look at your rapid review and figure out what works for you. So we realize that this is challenging. You've got tight timelines, working under a lot of pressure, but there are ways to engage patients and citizens. So if you look at all of the ways to do it, hopefully, you know, the goal in COVID Canada is to recognize patients and citizens as decision makers. So making a lot of individual decisions that have an impact on all of society. So we kind of have a unique situation here with COVID that we've never experienced in the world before, where citizens are so engaged in evidence-based medicine and the importance of evidence-based medicine for them. So those are the five different levels of engagement, and you may find that you're doing one, or you're doing two, or you really have to adapt it to what you can do reasonably in your rapid review. Next slide. And here are the stages where you could engage patient partners. So in the pre-conception, where you're identifying your research gaps, in the actual conception of it, in the conduct of it, in the analysis, and in the dissemination. Next slide. And FP is going to jump in whenever he wants. Basically, I don't want you to think that we're, but yeah, he told me he was going to do the color commentary. So just jump in if you want to add anything.
Thank you.
Okay, so here we go. Effective communication and building relationship is really quite challenging with rapid reviews. You don't have that long time span. So a main point of contact for patient partners is really important. Building trust with them. Be transparent to make sure everyone is aware of all the relevant information and what each person's role on the team is. Create a brave space where you're aware of the power dynamics that exist in patient engagement and work to dismantle them, and define roles. So what is it that you're expecting, seeking from them, but be flexible and open to discussion and change once you get to know them and they tell you what their interests are and where their strengths are.
Yeah, if I can jump in, Maureen and Andrea, I know it seems a bit challenging because we mentioned the need to build trust and everything is done in a short timeline. So you may have already established relations with patient partners that you can draw from. I know some of you already do, but what we hope to do with the COVID and citizen partnership strategy is to create a pool of citizens interested in being engaged in rapid reviews. So Maureen and I are working on this with some of our colleagues. We'll be creating a pool of engaged citizens, and we'll try to build that trust with the COVID initiative. And once you have a topic that you need to do a rapid review on, but perhaps you don't have a citizen or patient that have an interest or expertise in an area, you could connect with us and we could try, based on the pool that we have, find someone of interest.
Right. And we highly recommend that if you already have relationships with patients or citizens or community groups that you work with, that you consider working with them, and also that you consider mentorship. So if you're asking for two, maybe you've got one experienced patient or citizen and one who's just starting, and they can be a support to each other too. Next slide. All right, so here are some resources and tools on communication that could be of use to you. Next slide. All right, so plan ahead. So the researchers and the patients need training. We're asking you to try to get 2, 3 would be great, who will provide different insights. The earlier that the patients are engaged, the more they will know about the project and be able to effectively contribute. And we are, COVID End is using the Spore Evidence Alliance compensation appreciation policy that was co-developed with patients. So everything is streamlined. We're all going to be using the same compensation policy, that'll be very transparent, and it'll be very fair for all of the patients engaged. Next slide. And here are guides, more resources for you on patient engagement in research. Next slide. Okay, so here's a little bit about creating that positive environment, you know, open, genuine, share information, acknowledge their contributions, invite others to talk, etc. Keep the atmosphere, you know, calm, paraphrase to check for understanding, be respectful when the opinions are different. Next slide. And the barriers are tokenism, that's the big one. Not taking the time to build the trust and respect, which is difficult with the COVID and with the rapid reviews, we acknowledge that. Lack of understanding of why the person is engaging with you. Conflicting priorities between the patient and researchers. Lack of preparation and training, could be on both ends. Not setting the expectations, being the only patient on the team, and then there's always the power imbalances to look at, and then all the challenges that are related to ethnic, cultural, social, and organizational differences. Next slide. And here is a way for you to resources for you to reflect and evaluate on your patient engagement. Next slide. All right, and then just to add, François Pierre and I are here to support you with your patient and citizen partners, as well as Andrea. We're as François said, we're going to have a pool of people. If you have recommendations for people who you'd like us to put in that pool, or to approach to see if they'd like to be in the pool, we won't put them in without asking them. That would be great if you could contact us. Right now, we're a little Ontario heavy. So those of you who aren't from Ontario, really, if you could really help us a lot by sending us some people to contact, either community groups for the citizen engagement. Our patient engagement is much stronger because we've got networks already. Our citizen engagement, we're working really hard on getting that diversity of people who are affected by the COVID. And on February 23rd, so exactly a week from now at noon, we're going to have a webinar that's going to be open to everyone. And François Pierre and I will do a very brief presentation, but the bulk of it will be a fireside chat with a team of researchers and their 2 patient partners who've just completed a rapid review on vaccination. And we'll have an interactive discussion with them. What were the barriers with the facilitators? How do they go about doing it? And we hope that many of you will join that conversation and put your questions into the chat box and speak to a team who just completed a review. So François Pierre, I'll hand it over to you to add whatever I didn't put in, and then back to you.
But perhaps just in terms of enthusiasm from my part, I think the COVID initiative is a great opportunity to bring in citizens and patients into research evidence synthesis work. We know that the pandemic has been a very difficult period for everyone. Everyone has been affected in a way or another. Also, we know there's a lot of contentious issues, political sensitivities. So I think by engaging citizens and the public and patients in the work we do, it's a start to establish stronger, trustful relationship, and also potentially have a greater impact based on the work we do. So I'm just very excited. And again, as Maureen said we're going to be there to support you and also support the patient and citizens along the way. So thank you very much. Andrea, back to you.
Great, thank you so much. And it's just such a pleasure working with both Maureen and Francois Pierre. And I learned so much from both of you, and it's just such an honor and privilege to working with you. So thank you so much for your commitment, your dedication, and for everything you do. So huge thank you. And that was a really great session, and learned a lot of really amazing things. So hopefully that was helpful for everyone here as well. So we're going to get into some questions, but right before we do, I do want to acknowledge, first of all, want to acknowledge the CIHR grant for COVID End, for the one-year operating grant, as well as acknowledge the Spore Evidence Alliance from CIHR, as well as, excuse me, 41 partners from public and not-for-profit sectors across Canada who did provide cash or in-kind funding for the Spore Evidence Alliance. I also want to thank the Spore Evidence Alliance Central team. So again, such a pleasure for me to be able to work alongside these very brilliant individuals. And in particular, want to give a huge shout out to Wasifa Zarin, our research manager, who did such a fantastic job with these slides. So she was definitely the mastermind behind these slides. So thank you so much, Wasifa, for everything you do, and in particular for the presentation today. So here is our contact information. So if anyone does have any extra questions, again, you know, we extended, originally this was only supposed to be an hour, but you know, we felt there's just so many things we want to talk about, and we're anticipating quite a few questions and participation from everyone here today. So we've extended this to 2:30, so we have until 2:30 p.m. So we're going to open it up for questions, and do want to say though, if you didn't have an opportunity to ask your question today, or perhaps you have to run, we understand, or maybe you're a bit shy, you know, and you'd prefer to email us, here are our contact information, and really we would welcome your feedback and your comments, and would love to receive your question at any point in time. So thank you so much again. I am going to stop sharing my screen here, and I think we're going to open this up for some questions. Wasifa has kindly offered to moderate the chat box for us. So if you do have a question and you would prefer to type it in, please feel free to do that. And if there is something that's sensitive and you don't want us to record, let us know. However, I would like for us to record the questions and answers, because I think it really helps people who were not here today with their learning, because perhaps they have the same question as you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, and yeah, very excited to be here and welcome everyone's questions, whether it's for myself, for Maureen, Francois Pierre. We also have other leaders of COVID End. So I think I saw John Lavis somewhere, and Jeremy Grimshaw, and Nancy Santesso. I think I see her somewhere as well. So we're here to answer your questions.
Hi, Andrea. Curtis here.
Hi, Curtis. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. This might be a silly question,
yeah,
but I'm just thinking about our local decision makers, like our Chief Public Health Officer and the team that we have at GNWT, and whether they have a query, and whether are we reaching out to them individually about the COVID End project? And is there something that you have already prepared that we just send off to them?
well, thank you so much, Curtis. That is, you know, really appreciate that you are trying to make the connections with the government in the Northwest Territories. We really appreciate that. So if you do have some names that you feel they would be interested, if you could send those along to me, and I can send those along to John Lavis and his team at McMaster. Because we are looking for different government representatives across the country. So I would open this up to anyone here. So if you do have people that you would like to link us with, or you feel would be important to include in COVID End, please send their names along, and we're happy to consider that. And I'm not sure, John, if you wanted to add anything to that answer.
We now finally have all of the website text up on the COVID End website. So if you go to the COVID website, you'll see on the far right resources specific to Canada. And then within that, we have a section Keep Current, which people can now sign up to receive twice a month a Canadian spotlight, focusing on all the work done by any of the COVID partners, including work funded by COVID global spotlight, so any of the best systematic reviews from around the world, and then our monthly horizon scan. So Curtis, one thing that you may want to do is just alert them to that page. All they would need to do is enter their email address, and then twice a month they would get an update from COVID. But if they have particular questions, the next block on the website is called For Decision Makers. And they can either, within that, choose scan evidence products to see what we've done, or submit a request. And it's within a submit a request part that if you have colleagues in the government who may have questions that they would like COVID to answer, some background on what types of questions we prioritize, and then the link to the form is there. So hopefully everything is on those pages that you might need. We don't currently have a standalone one-pager. We've prepared slides, we've got the website up. When I interact with people for the first time, I usually send them links to these essential web pages so that they can explore in more detail. So Curtis, does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's just a great answer. And I will follow up with local people. And thanks so much.
Super. Thanks.
Thank you. And thanks so much, John. Did we have, I think, Wasifa, do we have anything in the chat?
Hi, Andrea. Yes, we have a couple of questions in the chat box. The first one is from Marilyn McDonald, and she requested that you review the layered approach that you mentioned in your slide.
Great. Okay. Hi, Marilyn. Nice to see you. So we've had on occasion, we've received this request by decision makers on occasion to use more like a layered search approach. So sometimes this is when the decision makers, they may not necessarily know the evidence that well, and perhaps they're looking for very specific types of evidence. So what we would do is, we've done it where we started off with clinical practice guidelines. And so, we would quickly summarize the guidelines out there, and we would put on a search filter on our literature search to identify only guidelines. And then we would send that to them. And then they would say, oh, this doesn't really answer our question. Can you move on to the randomized trials? So then we've searched the randomized trials, again, using the search filter on there, to identify those, and then, send them to the decision maker. And they said, well, this is great, but still doesn't really answer our question. Then we would go to observational studies. So perhaps we would then use search filters for case control and cohort studies. And then the same thing, they may say, okay, this is great, doesn't really answer our question. Maybe then we go to cross-sectional studies. Maybe then we go to case series, maybe then we go to case reports, right? So that is a way that we have used for streamlining rapid reviews. And I think also with COVID, the literature is just evolving so quickly. So maybe at the start, we focus more on media hits and like these unconventional sources of evidence. But as time goes on, now we're looking more for actual studies. So now we're looking for more observational studies or trials. So I was just giving that as an example or of something to think through when you are doing as a way to maybe streamline the rapid review. So you wouldn't be searching everything all at once, but maybe you would be more focused in the selection of what you're looking for.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you, Marilyn. Nice to see you.
You.
And then the next question is from Angela Wolf. They mentioned, or it's more of a comment and clarification point around the PRISMA checklist, whether the idea here is that they follow the checklist and adjust according to the fact that it's a rapid review with 10-day timeline and based on the needs of the decision makers.
Yeah, so thank you so much. So sorry, I didn't capture who that question was from.
That's from Angela Wolf.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Angela. Yeah, so that's exactly what we're suggesting. So we're suggesting you to use the reporting elements of Prisma as much as possible because we haven't there is no Prisma extension for rapid reviews at the moment. So you can use the Prisma 2020 to report your review, and in the reporting, in the report template, we've tried to provide some guidance on that and some prompts to make it really easy for you. Yeah, so hopefully, you know, I know it is a lot of work that we're asking you to do in 10 days. And we really appreciate your commitment and really appreciate everyone's hard work. And we find by using a reporting guideline, it is helpful for decision makers because then we're reporting important elements. And it's good to ask them as well if there are other elements that they want to report on. So hopefully that answers your question, but I'm not sure if, yeah, okay, I'm getting the thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Angela. Great.
The next question is from Nishan Sharma from U Calgary, and they asked if the inventory of evidence is searchable by keyword on the website.
Okay, so I'm wondering if this is a question for John Lavis or maybe someone from your team, John, about searching your amazing resource.
So the resource will be online, we hope, in April. So at that point, you'll be able to search any of the full or rapid reviews that we have found through COVID. So I can't remember how many we're adding a week, but it's probably in the hundreds range to that database. In the meantime, what we're doing is when questions come in, we're searching our own internal database for you. So if there is anything, we would send it out to you immediately. So as of April, you'll be able to search it yourself, but in the meantime, we would search it for you. If it has been deemed a best evidence synthesis for a given type of decision, then it would be on the COVID database, on the COVID website, but that's a static website. You can't search it. You can just scroll through to find the relevant decision. So if you were looking for the evidence about masks or the evidence about something else, you'd need to go down to that part of the taxonomy and then find the best evidence syntheses. So again, by April, fully searchable. In the meantime, we're searching it for folks, but if it's best, it's already up there on the site.
Great, thank you so much, John. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, they said thank you.
Oh, perfect. And I think there was some comments on top of that one, Wasifa.
Oh, yes. So I was getting to that. So
Oh,
we
thank you.
received a question from Vivian Welch about databases. So they wrote that Jordy suggested search could potentially use databases such as the Cochrane Registry of Studies and Epistemonicos, and they're not sure how up-to-date those two databases are for COVID-related questions.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I think we did suggest searching Cochrane if you can. I'm not sure how recent the Epistemonicos is. John, I know they have the COVID Love, so maybe would that be a resource that you would recommend the team search as well? Because we can add that in the template if you think that would be a helpful resource for the team.
Yeah, so there's a number of databases that are COVID specific that go to great lengths to maintain their currency. So Epistemonicos's Love platform would be an example there. McMaster's Health Information Research Unit, it's COVID Plus, I believe it's called. So if on the COVID website, we have a guide to COVID-19 evidence sources. We're just updating it based on new things coming in. We search many of those websites already for the COVID database. So if it is about whether reviews exist, if it exists, there's a very good chance we would already have it in our database. But when it comes to single studies, we identify the ones that are working most aggressively at maintaining their databases up to date. But those would be two examples, but they are listed in the COVID guide.
Okay, thanks, John. That's super helpful. So you know what we'll do is we'll revise that section in the work plan. So Wasif and I will work on that together, and we'll make sure that those resources are listed as well. Yeah, thank you.
We have a question from Ziwa Yu, and they wondered if any team has used semi-automation and machine learning in rapid reviews.
Sorry, can you repeat that, Wasifa?
Yes,
Oh,
there was,
yes.
yeah, whether
Yeah.
teams have used semi-automation and
Right.
machine learning in rapid reviews.
Yes, so we have, so we were working with colleagues at the University of Waterloo, and they have a tool that has won several international competitions within knowledge synthesis. And they actually developed it for within the legal field. So, so they've been doing a lot of work on this. So led by Gordon McCormick and Maura, I'm forgetting her last name at the moment, but we've been working with them and they helped actually semi-automate the update and screening. So they use AI and machine learning as part of the tool that they have created, which is called the CAL tool. So we've done that. So basically how the process worked is that we did the original rapid review using the regular human way of screening in the literature search with librarians. And then for the subsequent updates, we used their software where they basically grab in all the citations. So they grab in Medline in its entirety and preprint servers in their entirety, and as much resources as we can in their entirety. And we use like a predictive model and do several rounds of testing sets with the database, and then they would send us the citations that would be the most likely to be relevant, and then we would screen through those. We aren't able to do that for all databases. So for example, Embase, we're not able to do that, so that we would still continue with the traditional way of screening. But that has been our experience with it. And in the international competitions, they've had very, very high recall. So their recall is between 95 to 99% of identifying the relevant citations. So that's our team's experience, but would love to hear, you know, what other teams are doing, or how, if anyone has been working on that. I don't know, Wasifa, if anyone added to that.
I received a comment around Rick Sawatsky has done semi-automation, but they're not on the call.
Okay. Okay, it would be good to follow up with Rick, maybe to hear how they've been doing it. We did put in a CFI to develop a tool that we would make available to the teams. But as we know, or if anyone has experience with CFI, it's very, very long and slow process. So we probably won't have that tool available anytime soon, but it would be basically a tool for teams like these who would have access for rapid reviews. So stay tuned. We find out, and this is a collaboration again with our colleagues from the University of Waterloo. So we'll find out later on in the year, and hopefully we'll be able to help more teams do rapid reviews quicker.
Thanks so much, Andrea. So is it a tool used in combination with human reviewers, or do you see that it will replace human reviewers completely?
Yeah, so you need the human to interact with the tool so that you can come up with, you know, we would predict which citations would be relevant. So you have to do several rounds of testing. So you would have human screeners do several rounds of that screening. However, the number of citations that you would have to screen would be substantially less than having to screen all of the results in duplicate. So it would be screening on those test samples and then not having to screen anything else.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Andrea. It's very helpful.
My pleasure.
We have a question from Leah Boulos. They wondered whether COVID-End has any recommendation or preferred COVID-19 search filter for use in databases such as Medline.
So I think that's a wonderful question, and I'm not sure if John Lavis, if you have any ideas on that.
So not that I'm aware of. We can certainly ask around about it. I think part of the difficulty with COVID-19 evidence responses is one moment you can get a public health question, the next minute it can be clinical management, the next can be health system arrangements, and the next can take you into the entire economic and social response, housing and schools and all kinds of other stuff, so that we may be able to come up with search strings that zero in on the coronavirus or COVID-19, but I think we'll face the usual challenges of trying to find the right search terms for the specific questions that decision makers may have for us. But certainly we should see if there is a search filter that we can easily use either for coronavirus or for COVID-19. I suspect that's well developed by now. Oh, here we go. Search strings in CADATH. Great. So Ahmed's already put something in the toolbox. That's part of the reason why with COVID and what we're trying to do is bring together many of the best evidence synthesis shops in the country so we can all learn from each other. So thanks, Ahmed. If others know of others, please put them in the chat box.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I've been working in a lot of these COVID kind of reviews so far and cobbling together different things. So I just wanted to know if we wanted to put together sort of like a unified, this is what we'd like to use. Yeah, maybe we can explore that with the other librarians who are available on the team and see if there's, it just makes people's lives easier if they have a COVID string they can just plug right in.
Super.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. And if there are ones that people feel are pretty good, we're happy to include that in the work plan as a suggestion for teams to use those search filters. So thank you for that discussion. I think I got a private message here from Ahmed, just talking about Distiller SR. Did you want to share your question with everyone, Ahmed?
Sure. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I was trying to look for Brian Hutt because I think he stepped off, but
he did step off, yeah.
His team evaluated Distiller SR's machine learning tool. And I know people who have worked with it, so they were telling me that they use it for rapid reviews, that it would be one person would screen and then the AI would try to flag citations that were not included as potential for them to like recheck. And Brian Hutton, and I can share the citations and open access from BMC Medical Research Methodology. But their conclusions are that the tool in Distiller SR can reduce screening burden, and they use a modified or a stop screening approach. Once the true recall of 95% is achieved, appears to be valid method. So their results were pretty good, supporting that it can be used. And I'll put a link to the citation for everyone.
Yeah, that's great. No, thank you, Ahmed. So for teams who are using Distiller, that is definitely an option for you. And Brian is trying to advance the science in that area, which is great. And then if people are wondering how that tool is different than the one that we're creating, so the one that I was discussing, we're grabbing in all the citations from Medline, whereas this Distiller tool will help you if you already have your literature search like conducted and deduped and everything, then you upload it to Distiller and then you can run the AI in there to help. Basically what it does is it's prioritizing your abstracts and putting the ones that are most relevant at the top. So for teams that are using Distiller SR, I think it's a great tool that you can consider. And were there any other questions or comments? I see something here from Sarah.
Question? Hi, hello.
Oh, sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Joanna Stojanovic. I'm a postdoc working with Professor Simon Bacon. I have just a quick question.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Joanna, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm having a really hard time hearing you, but so lovely to meet you. I've seen your name in Simon's email, so lovely to finally meet you.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Much better, I can hear you.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm kind of with my microphone here. So I was just wondering, is there any expectations in general, like feedback from you about grading of evidence, and if that is something that is expected from the groups?
Yeah, so this is such a great question. And actually, I had some back and forth with Nancy Santesso. I don't see her on the line here. So I think that's very important, and that some decision makers want grade because they're familiar with it. Some of them, may not necessarily want that because they just kind of want the rapid review report. So I think, thinking through how do we tailor it to the decision makers. So if our decision makers are really asking us for grade, I think that's an option that we can potentially provide. I'm not sure if we could do that within the 5 to 10 days. Like, I think it would probably be something that we do afterwards. But I think it would be great if we could offer that as a potential product to the decision makers. And I'm not sure, John, if you had any ideas or what you felt about that.
Yeah, well, it's a big ask in such a tight timeline. So, what we're doing with our rapid evidence profiles, which are a different type of product and produced on an even shorter timeline, is drawing attention to grade evidence profiles when they exist already. So certainly that would be the hope here as well, that if you were doing a review and you found reviews that touch on at least part of the topic that had a grade evidence profile, then talking about the certainty of the evidence based on the grade profile would be hugely helpful. The COVID-N database, we also rewrite the title and try to use a declarative title that speaks to the certainty of evidence when there is a grade evidence profile. But it's a big ask in this incredibly short timeline. So we're suspecting that it's not going to be possible for most teams, unless, as Andrea said, there was additional time after that 10-day turnaround time.
Thank you, perfect.
Great, thank you. Thanks, John. I think that's very reasonable. Yeah. And I think I saw here something from Sarah Neil Stramko in the chat.
Andrea, it was going back to the conversation around search strategy and databases. So their comment was around that they agree with John, that's depending on the question, the search strategy will be different, and using some of the COVID-specific databases, those search words aren't needed.
Okay, that's helpful. So if we do include that in the work plan document or template, we'll make sure to clarify that, if you're searching COVID specific databases, you won't need a search filter for the COVID terms. Yeah, that makes sense. Great. So is there any other questions? I know we have about 10 minutes left and we've lost quite a few people. But we still have quite a few on here. So any other questions about the process or anything about the encouragement of patient or citizen engagement? Any questions on the flow of the work and how things will go, or the rapid review methods? Okay. Well, I think then we can give everyone 10 minutes of their life back. So thank you so much, everyone. And thanks, John, too, for staying till the very end and answering it was really great having you here to answer quite a few questions. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for your ongoing collaboration.
Thank you very much, Andrea.
Yeah, thanks. So take good care, everyone. Keep well, keep safe. And
thank you.
Thank you so much, Francois Pierre, and thank you so much, Maureen, and thank you, Wasifa. So if any other questions come in, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. We're happy to help support in any way, and know that the rapid review queries will be coming in very soon, I'm expecting, right, John? And so we'll be in touch with everyone very, very shortly. So thank you so much, and wishing everyone my very best wishes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.